When I woke up that morning, the house felt strangely quiet, the kind of quiet that sits heavy on your shoulders before you even stand. I walked into the kitchen, expecting to find my husband, Daniel, making his usual coffee. But instead, the counter was empty, except for a single envelope, my name on it, his handwriting. For a moment, my heart stopped. Married couples share everything, right? We laugh, we cry, we argue, we live side by side. But in all our years together, he never left me letters, not once. I picked it up slowly, feeling a chill run through me. The paper was old, yellow at the edges. It looked like it had been sealed a long time ago. I placed it on the table and just stared. The kitchen clock ticked loudly. I could hear it echo in my chest. I whispered to myself, why now? I thought about waking him to ask, but something held me back. Maybe fear, maybe instinct that we married young. I was 23, full of dreams. He was gentle, quiet, always patient with me. My family loved him instantly. They said, Evelyn, you found a good man. And I believed it. For years, he worked hard, and we built a warm little life together. A simple home, soft laughter, shared dinners, nothing unusual, or so I thought. But looking back, there were hints, moments when he would go silent during conversations about childhood, times he avoided old friends visiting town, nights he would sit at the edge of the bed, staring into the dark. When I'd ask, he'd smile softly and say, just memories. I convinced myself everyone had shadows, everyone had pieces they kept tucked away. But that envelope, it felt like those shadows finally followed him home. I sat down and ran my fingers over the seal. It had weight, not just paper weight, emotional weight. I breathed slowly, letting the morning light warm my face. Outside it had begun to rain, gentle drops tapping the window, like someone knocking softly on my thoughts. Maybe it's nothing, I whispered, but my voice trembled. A part of me already knew it wasn't. When I finally opened the letter, the first line made my hands shake. If you are reading this, then the past has finally found me. I felt the room spin a little. The letter spoke in a voice I did not recognize. It was still his handwriting, but the tone, it belonged to a man I didn't know, someone afraid, someone guilty. He stepped into the kitchen quietly. You found it, he said, his voice low. I looked up at him, seeing something new in his eyes, a storm behind them. He sat across from me, folding his hands like someone waiting for judgment. Evelyn, he breathed, there are things I never told you. And in that moment, I realized my husband was not who I thought he was. I sat there, holding the letter, staring at the man I had shared my life with for almost 12 years. The rain outside grew heavier, as if the sky knew something I didn't. Daniel looked older that morning, not in his face, but in his soul. His eyes avoided mine for a long moment, resting on the window instead. I never wanted you to read that, he whispered. I swallowed hard. Then why leave it out? He didn't answer. Not immediately. Instead, he breathed slowly, like he was choosing each word with care. Because pretending gets exhausting, he finally admitted. I waited. My heart beat loud in my ears. You know how I told you my parents passed away when I was young? He asked. I nodded. He had always spoken about them softly, with sadness. I respected that silence. They didn't die, he said quietly. My breath caught. For a second, I didn't understand what he meant. What do you mean? He rubbed his face with tired hands. I left them. I left my whole life behind. Changed my name. Started over. The kitchen felt colder. I gripped the chair to keep steady. Why would you do that? He looked directly into my eyes for the first time that morning. And in them, I saw fear. Real fear. Because I did things I'm not proud of, he said. Things that follow a man forever. My mind raced. Was he dangerous? Was I safe? But then I remembered the nights he held me when I cried, the mornings he warmed my coffee mug before I woke, the way he always checked the locks twice before bed. That was love, wasn't it? What things? My voice shook. He closed his eyes. I thought I could escape it. I thought if I loved you enough, maybe the past would stay quiet. I stared at the letter again. The ink was smudged in places, as if written with shaking hands. The next line read, if someone ever comes looking, tell them I was never here. Suddenly, the knock on the door from 2 nights ago made sense. 2 strangers, asking questions. Daniel had said they were lost. My heart pounded. Who were they? His silence was the answer, and then I felt it. The shift, the comfort of our home became unfamiliar. The man across from me became almost a stranger. Outside, thunder rolled. I whispered, why didn't you tell me? His voice cracked. Because I wanted one small piece of life where I wasn't defined by my mistakes. With you, I felt forgiven. He reached for my hand, but I pulled mine back instinctively, not out of anger, out of fear, out of confusion. The rain slowed, but inside, the storm only grew stronger. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more emotional real-life stories. The next morning, I barely slept. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything. I kept thinking about the letter, his shaking voice, and the strangers who came asking questions. When the sun finally rose, it brought no comfort. The house felt smaller, like the walls were listening. Daniel made breakfast quietly, just like every other day. Eggs, toast, tea. It was strange how routine can continue while life breaks underneath it. He placed the plate in front of me gently. You need to eat, he said softly. I nodded but couldn't lift my fork. My mind replayed his words over and over. I changed my name. I left my life behind. Every sentence felt like a stone pressing against my chest. Finally, I found the strength to speak. Who were you? Before me, he hesitated. A son, a brother, a man who trusted the wrong people. He looked at the floor. And a man who made decisions he can't undo. I wanted details, but at the same time, I was afraid to know. Sometimes the truth is heavier than the lie that protects it. Before I could ask anything else, there was a knock at the door. A cold wave ran down my spine. We both froze. Daniel's eyes widened, and his face drained of color. Stay here, he whispered. He stood slowly, walked to the door, and opened it just enough to look outside. A voice spoke from the other side. Calm, unfamiliar. We're looking for someone. We believe he lives here. My throat tightened. I remained in my chair, barely breathing. Daniel stepped outside, closing the door behind him. I rushed to the window and lifted the curtain slightly. Two men stood in the driveway. Suits, serious faces. They weren't lost. My heart pounded in my chest. I couldn't hear much, only murmurs. One of the men pointed toward our street. The other nodded slowly, as if confirming something. Daniel shook his head, but his posture looked defeated. After what felt like forever, he returned. He closed the door softly and leaned his back against it, breathing heavily. They're getting closer, he whispered. He didn't have to explain. I understood. Whatever he ran from, it had found him. I swallowed hard. Daniel, did you hurt someone? He didn't answer right away. He just stared at the floor, his shoulders trembling. Finally, he whispered, I hurt myself more than anyone. But there are people who want answers. Answers I was too afraid to give. For the first time, I saw regret written into every line of his face. I reached out slowly, resting my hand on his arm. We're married. I deserve the truth. He nodded, tears collecting in the corners of his eyes. Tonight, he promised, I'll tell you everything tonight. I should have felt relieved, but instead, a cold fear settled inside me, because when the past knocks on your door, it rarely leaves quietly. That night, I sat on the edge of our bed, waiting, listening to the rain return, and wondering what kind of story would change the way I saw my husband forever. That night felt endless. I sat in the living room, staring at the dim glow of a single lamp. The house was quiet, but inside me, everything trembled. Daniel walked slowly toward me, carrying an old wooden box I had never seen before. It was scratched, worn, and locked with a tiny brass latch. He sat across from me, placed the box on the table, and rested his hand on it. This, he whispered, is everything I've spent years running from. I swallowed hard. Open it. His fingers shook as he lifted the latch. Inside were faded photographs, letters, and a small silver badge. I leaned forward, trying to understand. My voice came out soft. You were a police officer. He nodded, eyes heavy. I joined when I was 20. I believed I could change lives, help people, but I was young, too brave, too blind. He pulled out a picture. 4 men stood together, smiling proudly. These were my partners, he said. We trusted each other with our lives. I listened, heart slow and heavy. One night, he continued, we raided a place we thought was storing stolen goods. But it wasn't just stolen property. It held secrets. And people willing to fight to protect those secrets. He paused, breathing shakily. Shots were fired. 2 of my partners were lost. The others blamed me. My breath caught. Blamed you. Why? Because I was the one who gave the order. His voice broke, but I didn't know. I didn't see the trap. Tears glistened in his eyes. Families demanded answers. Reporters wanted someone to blame. I became the face of a mistake. I felt the weight of his shame press against the air between us. They said I abandoned my team, he whispered. That I panicked. His voice wavered. Maybe I did. And you ran. I finished softly. I changed my name, he admitted. I tried to disappear. I tried to become someone better. You helped me feel human again. For a long moment, I said nothing. I just breathed, slowly, deeply, because this was not a small secret. This was a life shaped by guilt. But the men who came to the door, I asked, who are they? Investigators, he said. New people, looking into old cases. They want answers. Or someone to blame. Silence settled over us, thick and cold. I placed a hand over his. He flinched, then relaxed into my touch. You should have trusted me, I whispered. He closed his eyes. I was afraid you'd see me the way they do. I shook my head gently. Everyone makes mistakes. Running from them only makes them darker. He looked at me then, really looked as if seeing forgiveness and doubt fighting inside me. Outside, the street lamp flickered. The world felt very small. We'll face this, I said quietly. Together, his shoulders shook with silent relief. For the first time, he didn't look like a stranger, but deep down, I still wondered, what happens when the truth finally knocks again? Watch part 5 to hear what comes next in Evelyn's story. Like, share and subscribe to my channel for more emotional real-life stories. The next few days passed slowly, like walking through thick fog. Daniel tried to keep busy. He fixed the loose kitchen handle, watered the plants, and organized the tools in the garage. But I could see it in his eyes. He was waiting for the knock to return, waiting for the past to claim him. Every morning, I would wake up and quietly check our front yard from behind the curtain. No strange cars, no men in suits, just our quiet street and the smell of wet leaves from last night's rain. But peace felt temporary now, like a borrowed coat that wasn't ours to keep. One evening, as the sun dipped low, bathing the house in orange light, I found Daniel sitting on the porch steps. He stared at the street, his hands clasped tightly. Are you thinking about them? I asked softly. He nodded. Every day, I see their faces when I close my eyes. I hear the gunshots. His voice trembled. I've tried to forget, Evelyn, but forgetting doesn't change anything. I sat beside him. Running doesn't change anything either. He gave a sad, tired smile. You're right, but if they take me away, what happens to you? The question stung. I had thought about life alone, this house empty, his shoes by the door untouched, the quiet becoming too loud to bear. I don't want to lose you, I whispered. He reached for my hand, gripping it gently. I don't want to leave, but hiding hurts too. Every knock, every phone call, I can't breathe. A soft breeze moved through the trees, and for a moment, it felt like the world held its breath with us later that night. We sat at the dining table, eating in silence. The ticking clock seemed louder than usual. Finally, I spoke. You can keep running, or you can face them and clear your name. He stared at his plate. And if I can't clear it, then at least you'll stop carrying this alone. He looked up, his eyes glossy. You'd wait for me. I married you, I said. Not the mistake, not the past. You. Those words seemed to loosen something inside him. His shoulders dropped, and a slow breath escaped his chest. I'll call them tomorrow, he whispered. I'll tell them who I am. Fear crawled up my spine, but I nodded, because courage isn't loud. Sometimes, it's a quiet decision at a dinner table. That night, I lay awake, listening to Daniel breathe beside me. I held his hand tightly, as if I could keep him here just by wanting it enough. In the darkness, I whispered, please, let this be the right choice. The house felt still, the still dot in the early hours, just before sunrise. Headlights washed briefly across our bedroom wall, a car slowing down, then idling. My heart jumped into my throat. I slipped out of bed and peeked through the curtain. Two men stepped out. They were back, and this time, they weren't leaving. Their footsteps echoed on our front porch before they even knocked. I hurried back to the bedroom, shaking Daniel awake. His eyes opened instantly, as if he had been waiting for this moment. Without a word, he sat up, the fear on his face heavy and unmistakable. They're here, I whispered. He exhaled slowly, then nodded. Stay behind me, he said, voice steady but quiet. When he stood, something changed. He wasn't running anymore. The knock that followed was firm, polite, but powerful enough to make my heart jump. Daniel walked to the door and opened it. Two men stood outside, the same ones from earlier. Their expressions were calm, almost tired. Mr. Hayes, one of them said, using his real name. We need to talk. Daniel didn't correct them. He simply stepped aside and allowed them in. I hovered near the hallway, hands trembling behind my back. We aren't here to arrest you, the taller man said. We're here to reopen the case. Your testimony is needed. My breath left my lungs. Testimony. Not guilt, not handcuffs. But why now? Daniel asked quietly. The second man's voice softened. New evidence. It seems you weren't the one at fault. We believe you tried to warn your team. He hesitated, choosing his words. Someone else gave the wrong location. I saw Daniel's knees weaken slightly. For years, he had carried a weight that didn't fully belong to him. We came last week because we weren't sure if you'd cooperate. The man continued. People disappear when ghosts return. Daniel swallowed hard. I'm done disappearing. They exchanged a glance. Good, the taller man said. You may help bring the truth to light, but we'll need you to come with us for questioning. My heart clenched. Questioning sounded gentle, but it still meant leaving. Can I have a moment with my wife? Daniel asked. They agreed, stepping outside to wait. The door clicked gently behind them. Daniel turned to me, tears he had held for years now visible. I'm sorry I hid, he whispered. I didn't know how to carry this without losing you. I placed my hand on his cheek. You should have trusted me, but I'm proud of you for choosing to stay. He pulled me close, holding me as if memorizing the shape of my heartbeat. The house was silent except for our breathing. When will you be back? I asked. As soon as I can, he promised. I'm not running anymore. We walked to the door together. When he stepped outside, the air felt heavy, like the world was waiting. I stood on the porch as the car drove away, taillights disappearing into the dawn inside the quiet house. I sat on the edge of our bed and stared at the wooden box on the table. For the first time, it felt lighter. The secrets were no longer hidden, but as the silence settled again, a single thought echoed inside me. What happens when truth is finally free? I closed my eyes and prayed he would return, not just cleared, but whole. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more emotional real-life stories. The days that followed felt longer than any I had ever lived. After the car disappeared down the street, the silence inside our home grew louder. Every room felt emptier without Daniel's quiet footsteps. I tried to distract myself by cleaning, cooking, watering the plants, but nothing settled the weight in my chest. Each night, I left the porch light on, a small, hopeful signal, a welcome home sign. On the third day, I received a phone call. A calm voice introduced himself as Agent Morris. Daniel is cooperating, he said gently. He's been helping us connect pieces that were missing for years. I exhaled deeply, leaning against the wall for support. Is he safe? I asked. Yes, he replied, but there is still more to review. More to review. More to wait. More to fear. That evening, rain returned, tapping softly against the windows like a heartbeat. I sat at the dining table, staring at the wooden box Daniel had opened. I finally gathered the courage to lift the photographs. His partners looked young, hopeful, the kind of hope life doesn't always keep. One letter caught my eye. It was addressed to his mother. The handwriting was raw, emotional. He had written, I wish I could go back. I wish I could change it. I felt tears sting my eyes. He had been apologizing long before anyone ever asked him to. On the fifth day, there was a knock at the door. My heart raced as I opened it. Agent Morris stood outside, rain dripping from his coat. May I come in? He asked. We sat in the living room. He spoke carefully. We found evidence that shows Daniel tried to pull his team back that night. He saw the danger. He wasn't running. He was warning. My breath trembled. Then why was he blamed? Someone higher up needed someone to hold responsible, Morris said, and Daniel was the easiest target. I closed my eyes. The injustice burned quietly. He's still with us, Maurice continued. There are statements to finalize, but he paused, and the room held its breath. He'll be coming home. Relief hit me so suddenly I had to grip the arm of the chair. Thank you, I whispered. I'm not the one to thank. He replied gently. Your husband chose courage. When he left, I pressed my forehead against the closed door, letting silent tears fall. Later that night, I made tea and sat near the window. The house felt different, lighter, as if the walls no longer had to hold secrets. I whispered to the empty room, come home soon. Around midnight, headlights swept across the living room. I stood up, heart pounding. The car door opened slowly, and then I saw him. Daniel stepped out, tired but standing tall. When he reached the porch, he paused, seeing the light I had left burning. I told you I'd come back, he said softly. I wrapped my arms around him, feeling the weight of years finally lift. For the first time, he didn't look over his shoulder. The morning after Daniel returned, the house felt different, warmer, somehow. The kind of warmth that settles after a storm when everything is still wet, but the sun finally decides to show its face. We sat quietly in the kitchen, sharing breakfast the way we always had, but without the invisible wall that once lived between us. His shoulders no longer curled inward. His eyes no longer drifted away when memories came. He looked tired, but free. I reached across the table, touching his hand gently. "How do you feel?" He thought for a moment. "Light," he whispered, "like I've been carrying a box of stones, and someone finally lifted it away." A small smile lifted the corner of his mouth. It was the first sincere smile I had seen in years. Later that day, he gathered the old photographs and letters. I expected him to hide them again, lock them away. Instead, he placed them neatly back inside the wooden box and set it on the highest shelf of our living room. "Not to forget," he said softly, "but to remember that I survived." I nodded. Sometimes healing isn't erasing. It's learning to stand beside your past without falling. We spent the afternoon tending the small garden behind our house. The soil was damp from yesterday's rain, and the air smelled like fresh earth. Daniel dug quietly, while I planted new seeds. At one point, he paused and sighed deeply. "I kept thinking I didn't deserve peace," he admitted. I wiped dirt from my hands. "Everyone deserves a second chance." He looked up at me, gratefulness shining from his eyes. "You didn't run," he said, "even when you were scared." I shrugged, trying to hide the lump in my throat. Love isn't about standing only in the sunshine. Sometimes, it's choosing to stay in the rain. That evening, we sat together watching the sunset paint the sky gold and pink. There was no rush to speak. Silence felt safe for the first time. Then Daniel turned to me. "They want me to help close other cases, ones like mine." My heart tightened. "Does that mean you'll be leaving again?" He shook his head. "Only during the day. But now, I'm not running into shadows. I'm walking toward the light." I smiled softly. "Good." When night fell, I walked through the house, alone for a moment. Every room told a story. Fear, secrets, waiting. But now, they held something new. Peace. I returned to the porch, where Daniel leaned against the railing, looking up at the quiet sky. "There's something I learned," he said without turning. "The truth will always knock. It's better to open the door than to hide behind it." I slipped my hand into his, and when it knocks again, he squeezed gently. "We'll answer together." The moon hung high, calm and silver. The air was cool, quiet, and inside me, the storm finally settled. Sometimes the past catches up to you, not to punish you, but to set you free. Thank you for listening to Evelyn's emotional journey. Watch more stories like this on our channel. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more heartfelt real-life stories.